You know what they say about opinions? They're just like belly buttons. Yeah, belly buttons. Everybody has one. Well, we have asked for your opinions. We've asked you for feedback to the Adventure Journal podcast, and you have given it to us. That's what we are going to talk about today. Share your thoughts. I'm Stephen Casimiro. I'm your host. Welcome to the Adventure Journal podcast. With me is your co-host, Justin Hausman. Justin,
Hello.
what's up?
Having a little coffee, watching the rain. Pretty standard.
Yep. The only issue I take with that is the word little, but that's okay.
I mean, this is my fourth cup.
Okay. Fourth cup, that's a little bit of coffee. I love that. All right. So we're going to dive in and we are going to talk about the feedback that we have had for episodes on Cairns and backpacking and a few other things. All of these episodes will be linked in our podcast pages. And also want to encourage you right from the start that we do want to hear from you and we want to make this a regular episode. We want our listener, reader, and viewer feedback. You guys and gals are doing all the stuff that we're doing, if not more. And so
sounds like more based on the comments.
I think more based on comments. Yes. So we absolutely want to hear from you. You can leave a comment on YouTube. You can also DM us on Instagram. One way for us to be able to share the comment on our page and throughout would be by emailing it to us, mail@adventure-journal.com. Also, today we're going to have some audio from Ace Cavalli with feedback. So we would love it to share your voice and your thoughts, just like they do, the big folks do on NPR. And to do that, you can just make a voice recording on your phone, and then you can email it to us at mail@adventure-journal.com. Okay, we are going to start with the episode on why we kick Cairns. And I just have to say, I was kind of surprised that nobody who was listening didn't get upset and go, why are you kicking Cairns? I mean, I know that they're like culturally like bad, but like, you know, kicking a Karen, that just doesn't seem, but that's just my word.
You know what that means? That means we have knowledgeable listeners and viewers.
I was hoping for one who would get upset at that. So, okay, we didn't, but we did get some voice recorded feedback from Ace Cavalli. Ace is a photographer, mountaineering ski photographer. I've known Ace for 35 years, probably, maybe more. And he's the one who, as I mentioned in the episode, kind of radicalized me in terms of kicking Cairns. And so Ace was trying to figure out how he was going to get us the voice recording, and we were texting back and forth, and I was just encouraging him, like, people want to hear from you. You are just OG. And he texted me back. He goes, what's OG? So that's how OG Ace Cavalli is. He didn't know until just this week what OG was. So amazing dude, and we are going to roll his voice recording now.
Hi, this is Ace Cavalli out in the middle of nowhere, Utah. I really enjoyed that podcast about Cairns and Cairn kickers the other day from Steve and Justin, but I just want to add my perspective. To me, there's three basic categories. There's way over Cairn, when I go down to our popular trailheads and I can see 7 Cairns in a row, way out stretching in front of me. I could knock down 6 of those. I only need to see one at a time if I'm headed in a direct line or even through a windy trail. 1 or 2 is enough to find the way. Then there's way in the backcountry on our backcountry routes where some cairns are good, but they tend to be over-cairned by people who are scared of finding the way back, marking it for someone else. I'm not sure. And then there's way out in the backcountry where there's no cairns and no cairns belong, except for maybe one little cairn that shows you the way down a canyon wall. It's really hard to find your way down. It's often easy to find your way up. But sometimes just that one rock could be all you're looking for. It could be a hallelujah moment. And so I don't mind those kind of cairns, and I've even built a couple, although I've knocked down hundreds. And so that's about it, really. But thanks again, you guys. Really appreciate that piece. Over and out.
Thank you, Ace. As usual, Ace is spot on. Justin, you have any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, it actually it's interesting. The being super out in the backcountry, and that hallelujah moment is something we I don't I'm sure we talked about the necessary cairns when we discuss kicking them, but that is a pretty cool feeling. I mean, I've encountered that before, where you just kind of you have that moment where you just realize, I don't know if I'm on the trail anymore, and then off in the distance, it's like a little beacon. Those like three rocks, and that is definitely. I probably said hallelujah outside. The other thing it made me think of too is we were so, or at least I am so quick to talk about how one of the reasons I don't like cairns is I don't necessarily want to be reminded of human contact out there. I'm out there not to see other people. But when you're real deep out there, maybe it's kind of cool if you see another, just a little, like that one little tiny marker that, hey, like someone else has been here too, but you don't know who they were, but you can kind of have a little moment of connection with someone. It could have been there decades before, who knows? I hadn't thought about that before until just now, listening to Ace's point. So, I think that's neat. That's kind of romantic. Maybe something special about having a little moment of connection real deep out there.
It is an interesting point because so much we talk about getting away from people to get away from people, and then we want no sign of them. And I would rather see something like a single rock denoting a descent, because I've run around on the top of cliffs, looking for ways down, and spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the route is, versus running into somebody in the backcountry. I mean, one of the things that I'm always cognizant of is, I don't know if they're thinking, oh crap, another person, like I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be as low key with them. I want to read them, but I generally want to be as low key for them as I want them for me. Because I don't, maybe they're in this kind of no humanity vibe, and now all of a sudden there I am.
Yeah,
So
right. It's like when you get mad at traffic from inside your car. You are part of that traffic.
you
Yeah,
are traffic, right?
I like his ratio of having knocked down hundreds and built one or two. That seems
Right.
about right. That seems about right to me.
That sounds about right. So cool. Okay. Well, we have a short one that was left on YouTube. Justin, can you read this for us?
Yeah, they weren't always so nice. This is from McLovin7170 at YouTube, and McLovin, big super bad fan apparently, or just fake ID fan, says they aren't harming anything but your ego and false dictum of what nature means. As for leaving it undisturbed, your presence is more of a bother than some stacked rocks. All right. I guess that is maybe kind of true depending on your presence. I don't know.
Isn't that what we just said in a way? Like, I'd rather
Yeah.
see a rock than a person. Kinda. I mean, it's a little. I appreciate the directness, McLovin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see where you're coming from.
The false
Yeah.
dictum of nature is interesting too. I mean, that's something that we kind of wrestle with. Like, what does wilderness actually mean? Who gets to define that? We have this sort of, I think, common idea amongst those of us who really treasure and love the outdoors and wilderness, that it's to be something that's completely undisturbed and have no sign of human presence. But that's not. I mean, that might not really be the case for everybody, and I'm not even sure that that's true. So it's a good, it's definitely an interesting point. And I think we're probably all a little bit guilty of casting our own sort of desires and wishes on things around us. And, so I see where he's coming from, but I don't agree. Sorry, McLovin.
Yeah. Well, we got to make our points. So people who've listened to the episode know how we feel about it, and now we know how McLovin feels. I do think, yeah, that raises a potential for a really interesting episode, which, should we abandon using the word wilderness? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
impossible at this point, since it's codified into law with the Wilderness Act. But we are finally starting to recognize European Americans, or sort of non-indigenous people, are finally recognizing and starting to respect the wisdom of indigenous people, and nowhere near enough. Absolutely, we're only in the infancy, and tiny little bit compared to what we should be doing. But I believe that most indigenous people do not have a word for wilderness,
Right.
because it's just where you live. I know the Inuit don't. And so wilderness is in some ways the idea of wilderness is a colonial construct. And the idea of here's a place where there are no people, here's a place where there are people, as opposed to working to feel more a part of and connected to nature with a lower footprint as a human, is probably a critically important goal. So yeah, so
Yep.
we'll talk about that. It'll be interesting to get some other folks on who are wilderness experts and some indigenous folks, and maybe have a roundtable around that, because I think that could be a really interesting discussion.
Totally. Thank you, though, McLovin, for sending that in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So really quickly, going back to the first episode where I talked about this canvas tent that I have set up out in the Mojave, Ben Kristen from benkristen.com left a comment on YouTube. He said, my one critique would be regarding the comment about, quote, you wouldn't take a canvas tent on a weekend camping trip. My wife and I had used a 4-person nylon tent for about 10 years. And after all the seam seal finally gave way and we added 2 littles to our camping group, we upgraded to a 10 by 14 spring bar canvas tent. And I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it is to set up. It really is a one-man job. The worst of it, and most time-consuming, is pounding in the 14 or so stakes around the edges. But otherwise, it goes up quickly and has been a great tent for us on weekend trips. I'd love to do week-long trips, but the 9 to 5 and PTO that gets used elsewhere, ... So,
I don't
yeah.
know what a spring bar tent is. Do you?
I don't.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm curious if it gives you some. I mean, they look like, okay, how to set up a spring bar tent. Well, they look like every other kind of canvas tent I've ever seen. Looks like there is a little bit. Yeah, okay. It still looks complicated. I mean, I would love to be able to use my tent I have in the backyard. I mean, I've been using it a bit more as it's gotten cooler. I have a 13-foot bell tent in my backyard right now. And it's, especially as we're getting some rain, it's really pleasant to sit in it. And man, the experience, like you mentioned during the canvas tent episode, is so much cozier than a synthetic fabric tent. I would love for this to be my regular tent, but it weighs, I think it weighs 100 pounds. And the bag it comes in is enormous. So I don't know if I even have room for it, but I get where he's coming from. I think it would be great.
Well, the tent that I got, I'm pretty sure it's a 16 by 16. So it's huge. And I have the portico, the porch on the front, which is a key part of it. Kodiak, I mean, there's tons of canvas tent manufacturers out there, but Kodiak is the one that I have. And I know they make a 10 by 10. And the reason I got the big one is because I knew that it was going to be set up semi-permanently. So if your goal is weekend, I'm guessing a 10 by 10, I mean, that's plenty of room. You don't need the porch. It's nice, but you don't need it. Like if you know that you're going to be using it primarily on weekends, then I think that that's a great option.
And I think we both talked about how it takes quite a bit longer to set these up than it does a regular tent. But I mean, that would come down if I used it all the time. I'd have my own little system. But there is a lot of staking. I mean, he's right about that. Like you do have to. It's way different than a standard tent. But it's probably worth it. I mean, what am I complaining? I'm complaining about 20 more minutes of setting up a tent. I mean, I should try it. But also, mine is pretty glamped out in the backyard. I don't want to have to take it down and move it.
I don't think we're talking about taking one out of your backyard that you use as a mini cabin. I think we're talking about this is your primary tent.
Mm-hmm.
I found really good arguments for and really good arguments against. I love the sense of durability. I love being able to walk around on a super durable floor. I love, the organic feel of the cotton, the canvas. I mean, on the other hand, it's super heavy. I mean, that's just, nylon tents are always going to have certain drawbacks like the nylonness, and canvas tents are always going to be heavy. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So, okay, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to hear what people have to say about whether backpacking is overrated. You love adventure, we love adventure, and that is why we created Adventure Journal in print. It is the gift that we've made for ourselves and for our friends, and hopefully for you, that is analog, that gets away from screens, that gives you some of the most interesting, deepest, and thoughtful stories from some of the best writers and photographers working in the outdoor space. We do 4 a year. You get free shipping and a deep discount. It's $60 to have this absolutely beautiful, no batteries necessary celebration of adventure in your mailbox. Get it at adventure-journal.com. I am drinking, it's gotten cold now because we're halfway through the show. I am drinking Long Weekend Coffee. We launched Long Weekend Coffee earlier this year to bring you and us blends that are not fussy, that will take any kind of brew method that we like, whether it's at home, in a cabin, on the tailgate of a truck, doesn't matter. We have 4 blends. We have dark, medium, espresso roast, and a decaf. I think they're pretty amazing. I guarantee you will like them. Check us out at longweekend.coffee. Welcome back to our listener, reader, watcher feedback mailbag episode. Justin, backpacking and the idea of it being overrated or underrated definitely kicked off, I think, more comments on that than anything else we've gotten. People do feel very personal about their connection to backpacking. Tell us what Mr. Super Walking Dude had to say.
That is a great handle, Mr. Super Walking Dude. Where is it? Is this was this from how did he get this to us? YouTube. Okay.
YouTube.
Great handle. Mr. Super Walking Dude, I'm assuming he's sort of responding to maybe, well, both of us, I guess. My situation is similar to yours in that I'm coming back to backpacking after a pretty substantial layoff. I'm in my latter 50s and just started up again after taking about a 15-year sabbatical. Anyway, as my friends have begun to move toward retirement, we've started annual trips of 3 to 6 days in the past few years. It's really shocked me how much I'd missed it. That doesn't surprise me. I keep in shape with trail running and general outdoor activity, but not with carrying equipment on extended hikes and just moseying along, appreciating the terrain, vegetation, sky, and conversation. It's a slowdown that does a world of good. I did upgrade my 80s gear and tried to find the sweet spot with lower weight equipment that didn't break the bank, but provided enough relief to make the walking part more enjoyable. My take is backpacking is underrated, especially when you're old enough to really appreciate how fortunate we are to self-contain and travel on our own power. It's a privilege I won't take lightly for the remaining time I have. And then he follows up with, keep up the good work.
You know, it's thanks, Mr. Super Walking Dude. Appreciate how fortunate we are is something that I think we all need to reflect on. And one of the things that I knew from the beginning when we started Adventure Journal, that this is adventure as recreation, and we're incredibly lucky to be able to do that. There are people who have legitimate adventures that are kind of running for their lives, or, you know, that are trying to get a better life for themselves, or they find themselves in a non-recreational adventurous situation. So, and as we get older too, and, I see the seniors, the elders in my life, and I see hip replacements and arthritis in knees. And I think that it's important, no matter how old you are, to be grateful that you can, push yourself physically the way that you do. So.
I'm stoked that he took a 15-year sabbatical and is getting back into it. I mean, I'm not sure how old he is. Well, I guess he said his later 50s. So, I mean, that makes me feel pretty good about what's coming down the road. I mean, I'm on about 4.5 years at this point. So, I mean, putting it down and picking it back up again, honestly, that's good for lots of things. I mean, I've gone through that with surfing before, where I didn't surf for a couple of years. So I was just kind of tired of it and was busy with grad school and moved on to other things. And when I came back to it, it was like falling in love all over again. I'm assuming he's probably going through that a little bit right now, but, and he's right, that self-contained bit. I mean, I'm sure we mentioned this, but as much as I've really enjoyed overlanding these last few years and dialing in my car camping setup to be super comfortable and then day hiking based on that, there is nothing at all that touches that feeling of your first step on the trail with all you have on your back. Like that, it's an amazing moment, and you can't recreate that with car camping. So
no, you can't. So, okay. So then we got an email from a longtime industry veteran, Michael Hodgson. If you're in the outdoor industry, you know Michael. He is a great dude. And I've been on a number of trips with Michael. He said, as president of the board for Big City Mountaineers, on a trip guiding a group in a desolation wilderness. Day 4, after a wonderful snowball fight, one of the boys, if I remember correctly, he was 12. He had a hard life and came from the worst of the places to live in Oakland. His dad was in jail, his uncle was in jail, his mom was working the street. He lived with his grandma, and we're sitting in a circle that night. And he said, Mr. Hodgson, I think I get this backpacking shit and all. I'm having a lot of fun and learning a lot. But can you do all this without having to carry that fucking pack? Carrying a backpack is not fun, but it is the price paid to get you to some pretty amazing spots, Michael writes, in sites that are hard to experience otherwise. And he also, in closing, Michael, I don't know how tall you are, but Michael is not tall. And he said that on his first backpack, he used a horseshoe poncho roll, an army poncho that had his mess kit, his sleeping bag, his clothes, personal items carefully positioned before rolling it up, bending it into a horseshoe shape, then tying parachute cord to secure the roll before hanging it over his shoulders. The ends nearly scraped the ground. Is quote, I was not a tall camper. So, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, I mean, that's kind of what I talked about, like as a Boy Scout, like, why do I have to carry this?
I wonder how long ago that was. Hopefully that kid might be an absolute badass ultralight backpacker at this point.
Who knows? Who knows?
I mean, that's great.
All right, let's get to the next and final comment that we're going to share.
All right, this one comes from TJ3272, also from YouTube. TJ writes, this podcast is awesome, and this was a solid episode. He's, of course, referring to the backpacking episode. But I got to say, I thought you guys got out there. Years between trips, I didn't expect that. Come on, guys, strap it on. God, TJ, that's tough. Well, I guess everyone has their own lane, which is why, because we're of similar ages, I think it's pretty clear why glamping has become a thing. We are getting weaker, require guardrails, comfort, and have a need for constant stimulation. We've also gotten away from suck it up. If a dad does that now to their kids, it's considered abuse by those living their lives in a safe, sheltered way. It will always be true that some connect to nature and others don't. And for those who do, there's different ways of accessing it. But in my opinion, none carry the same weight as backpacking, mountaineering, and to a lesser extent, hiking. That's where we're animals, and something I think we need a little bit more of. At the very least, it can help slow down the whining and lack of appreciation so many seem to indulge in. Thanks for the episode. Great topic. So TJ, look, man.
He's talking to you.
He's talking to me because I made a big deal about having not backpacked for 4 or 5 years after being super into it for a long time. I have excuses. I have excuses, and here they are. They're two.
We don't want to hear them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I have two extremely cute kids. I mean, it sounds lame, but I don't live in a place where I can go like backpacking without a day's journey to get to it.
Excuses.
So yeah, that's true. And so, it's like if I do a 3-nighter, that's a 5-day away from the girls. And, as much as I absolutely love backpacking, as much as I absolutely love adventure, as much as I absolutely love everything that we do at Adventure Journal, I don't know that anything beats like curling up on the couch with my 2 little girls at the end of the day. It's so hard to peel me away from that. That really is my main excuse. That'll change as they get older, but right now I don't want to miss a moment of that. I backpacked a bunch. I'll backpack again, as Mr. Super Walking Dude has shown us. That can come later. But right now, my priority is on these 2 little girls. Plus, also, I was much more into getting out for like weeks at a time when I lived in a place that wasn't, surrounded by nature quite as much as I do now. I can kind of scratch that itch pretty easily by going up for a mountain bike ride right from my front door, going fishing from my front door, that kind of stuff. So I don't quite feel the need to do these bigger trips as much, but that could also be getting older. I mean, it's a really interesting topic. I don't know, what's the frequency of doing these sorts of things do you have to maintain before you lose your cred? Like we should probably be aware of that. That kind of ties back into our hardcore episode as well. Like, can you kind of take a break without losing your edge? I don't know, but I'm in it right now.
Yes, all of the above. Yes, and I mean, he's talking to both of us. Uh, there's a lot of really interesting things to consider there in that, and it does. All of these elements are tied together. Am I hardcore? Do other people think I'm hardcore? Do I care whether they think I'm hardcore? As an editor of a magazine with adventure in the title, do I have to be out, 250 days a year? How important is that? I mean, we even thought about this way back in the day at Bike and Powder
Of
magazines. Do
course.
our art directors need to be skiers and hardcore mountain bikers?
Mm-hmm.
Does that really matter? Or is what we are asking from them is the talent to take these ideas and make them look good? I don't. I think we all have to answer those personally. I did feel the sting of the criticism or the comment because it hits home,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and not because I think of myself as one way or another, but because as I said in the episode, I do love being out there. I do love that sense of getting away from everything. On the other hand, um, I've never really been the sort of person to just sort of sit leaning against a rock and watch what happens for 3 hours. I mean, I get bored. I want to move. I want to take photos. I try to identify plants or, whatever, or stack rocks. And so
You got a lot of cairns to knock down. You
I
can't
have
be in one
yeah.
place.
Oh, sorry, unstack rocks. Yeah, I don't know. I can only sit still for so long, and that's just how I'm wired. And so I can think of times when I would backpack and I would get to where I was camping, and typically I would do it like right before sunset because I didn't want to stop. And then I'd set up camp, or if I'd set up camp an hour before sunset, I'd get there and I go, okay, now what? It's too late for coffee. Should I read a book? And so I think that there's an element of some people probably are very comfortable just sitting there and taking it all in, and their goal is to sit by the lake and see what comes to them. They contemplate things. That's just not how I'm wired. So
Yeah.
I yeah, I like, but I say that, and then a couple of days ago, a friend of mine texted me and asked if I wanted to do something this winter in the Mojave, and his two options were it walk the last 60 miles of the dry Amargosa River or do a traverse of the Providence Mountains in the Mojave. And my response was, how many days are you
Yeah.
thinking? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, one, can I do this? Two, do I want to do this? Three, yes, I want to do it, but how many days and what's involved? And so that, to me, like, the idea of backpacking is, let's go backpacking. This may sound a little binary, but I have like almost no desire to go, yes, let's go backpacking. To go, like, let's start at the south end of the Providence Mountains and then let's walk to the north end and see what we see and see what occurs. That's really appealing to me. And part of the price of that is that I have to, carry a
Right.
backpack and food and water and all that other sort of stuff. I'm way more interested in, like, let's see the 60 miles of the Amargosa.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is like what Michael Hudson said. We have to carry a backpack to do that.
It's interesting. I don't think you brought that up when we had this first discussion like a lot of people, myself included, because when I think of backpacking, I actually think of like that, like carrying things on my back as part of it. It's not, I don't do great with sitting still either by a lake or something like that. But I very much enjoy all the process of thinking about how, okay, I'm removing myself from all my comforts. I'm carrying everything with me. This is hard. It's hard on purpose. Like, I like all of that sort of stuff as a self-contained activity. So it makes sense why you would be less sort of stoked about it, because for you it's just, I have to sleep at night, so that's fine. I'm more interested in sort of the I don't know, accomplishments along the way, or the experience along the way, or what have you. It's fascinating how many different ways you can approach an adventurous life, and what speaks to you and what doesn't. I'm always amazed at how many people are able to unplug from their lives for 10 days at a time, 12 days at a time. I mean, even, it wouldn't matter what it is. I mean, if we were planning a Japanese vacation for 2 weeks, that would be pretty tricky for me in terms of just mentally taking myself from my current situation to being gone for 2 weeks, even if it was luxury the whole time. So I struggle a bit with unplugging myself from my daily routine, which has just gotten harder as I've become a parent and have every day becomes, just kind of just chock full of stuff throughout the whole day.
Right.
Excuse, I wish that wasn't the case. And plenty of people do it. Plenty of people bring their kids. Plenty of people don't have that sort of thing.
Well, you can't do everything. And the things that are in my life right now are, aside from doing AJ, which is pretty consuming, and doing long weekend coffee, which is less consuming, but hopefully will grow. And the time that I spend with my wife and with my mom, and not enough, but with my kids. I add, wanting to mountain bike and wanting to mountain bike in new places, and to trail run, and maybe throw in some training of carrying heavy weight there, and go to the desert and spend time in the desert, and spend time with my new friends and old friends out in the Joshua Tree area, and see art. I mean, I look at all the things that I'm really passionate about. Oh, live music. I think about all the things I'm really passionate about in my life, and if I have to want to do a 5-day backpack, I mean, for me right now, and everybody, hikes their own hike. For me right now, it's not as important as all these other things that I really love doing just as much. But it is interesting to reframe it as thinking about, I'm not going backpacking. I'm doing a traverse of these mountains. Or I never think about ski mountaineering as winter backpacking.
Yeah.
No, I'm going in here because I want to ski, and it's too far to come out and go back in the next day. And I'm not going winter backpacking. I'm doing a little mini ski mountaineering expedition. So I think that part of it, for me, thinking about it as quote unquote backpacking, for me, there's too much association with the weight, with the pack on your back, as opposed to the joys of it. So I don't know. Maybe now we're talking about how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin.
I also feel like I imagine it might be the case for you as well. And I have a very limited understanding of how this works in the UK, but I feel like you around in other places in Europe, you can sleep outdoors in a lot easier than we can. There's nowhere around here I can go backpacking. But it's all open space. I mean, if I could just plop a tent down on any of these hills around me, I feel like I'd probably do it all the time. I'd love to connect different little regions that would take a couple days to get to. And then sleep outside to do it. I mean, that'd be fantastic.
Well, you could if you want to poach, and
that's true. Yeah,
and I have no problem with something like that. So the next episode that we're going to record, I'm not quite sure when it is on the schedule, but the next episode that we're going to record is with Alistair Humphreys, who is a adventurer based in the UK. I'm guessing you folks may know Al's name. He coined the term micro adventures, and I think about that all the time. And one of the things I actually need to shop for it is I don't have a bivvy right now, or a tiny one-person shelter, but with a one-person shelter, you live in a place where there's running water, so a Chipotle burrito or two, some espresso, some chocolate covered espresso beans, there's no way you couldn't do a couple of nights out and just walk till you want to stay, lay down somewhere in the redwoods with a 20-degree bag and a really light pad, or no pad if it's warm, and there's no reason why you can't do it. I think the reasons are, the inertia of thinking through it. So we all struggle. I'm sure that we all struggle with this. And if you're reading or listening to Adventure Journal, then I'm guessing you're a multi-sport, multi-activity adventurer. We're all trying to figure our way through this.
There's not really an easy path. There's not one path. That's for sure.
There certainly isn't one path. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us. I really want to encourage you. We love our readers, our listeners, our viewers, and you all are our peers, or our superiors, because you're probably getting out more than we are. And we want to share. It's not that we want feedback on what we're doing. We want to share your thoughts on these things, and we view them as prompts for more conversation. And so we want to have your voices and your words on here. So the easiest thing probably is to send an email to mail@adventure-journal.com, or to record a voice memo and send it there. But as we mentioned at the top, you can DM us on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We are on Facebook. And you can also leave comments on YouTube. And we would love to have that. So we are, as of the day that we're recording, we are wrapping our winter issue today and hopefully printing by the end of this week. It is such a great issue with a wonderful profile of snowboarding legend Craig Kelly, with a beautiful essay by Rebecca Solnit, one of America's most beloved writers. Have so much incredible stuff in this issue. I cannot wait for you guys to get it in the mail and open it up and unwrap it in early December and a holiday present. So to get that, you need to subscribe. You can do that at subscribe-to-aj.com, or where you can find all things ajadventure-journal.com. Thank you, and we'll catch you next time.